Alright, now that he is clear, we're ready to taxi. So if you want to release the brakes, give us a little bit of power.
Push to release, right?
Alright, so when you release the brakes, you don't have to worry about the tab. You should just be able to pull this back and the tab should automatically release.
Oh, is that release?
Yes. Alright. Got to add a little bit of left pedal here. Alright, a little less throttle there. There we go.
Hampton Roads, 90 Tango, turning final, 28, touch and go, Hampton Roads.
Alright, and we're making a left here. Alright, so these rudder pedals are pretty stiff, so it takes quite a bit of pressure to carry us through those turns. Alright, now if we ever get going too fast, the first thing we're going to do is pull a little bit of power back, and then if we really need to slow down, then we'll get on the brakes. Alright, so go ahead and start working that power back, because we're coming up on a turn here. Alright, now anytime we're going through a turn like this, I normally just like to have my hands on the brake, in case we need it.
Okay.
Also, that specific turn, I know that we're coming right up on a hold short line.
Yes,
so,
we are.
Obviously we have solid lines on this side, dash lines on the other side, which means we need to make a radio call before we cross it. So, this is runway 0220, so you can just say that we are crossing 0220.
The road traffic, right?
Yes.
Hampton Roads traffic, 4293 Juliet, crossing runway
0220.
0220.
All right. Go ahead and release the brakes now. All right, give us a little power. We'll make sure that we are clear left, clear right.
Yep.
Obviously, clear straight ahead as well.
And we're going straight down?
Yep, straight across.
This is another runway right here.
Yes.
But is this runway active?
It is, yep. But nobody ever uses it. Even when the winds are favoring it, people do not like that shorter runway for whatever reason. Whenever we do your short field takeoff and landings, sometimes we'll use that runway.
What is that jitter in the rudder pedals?
Alright, so on the nose wheel, we actually have what's called a shimmy dampener, which is designed to absorb some of those oscillations. So sometimes when it starts to wear out, we can get a little bit of shimmy like that.
Okay.
Or sometimes if we just start going a little bit too fast.
Cross 128 Hampton Roads.
Alright, go ahead and start working our way to a stop here. Because this guy he couldn't really be much more in our way if he tried.
Yeah.
We'll give him a second. So normally if you're the only plane in the run-up area, only plane down here, you need to pull farther over that way.
Yep.
And probably could have made this turn a little tighter. But
Hampton Roads, 90 Tango, left down 128.
Alright, let's go ahead and start running through that run-up checklist. There's nobody behind us.
Alright, so brakes are on. Fuel on a proper tank. We're on the right tank.
Okay.
Trim for takeoff.
Okay. So we're in the neutral position.
Yep.
Perfect.
Flight controls.
Alright, so looking out the window here, I can see the stabilator going up and down. Alright, how about the ailerons?
Ailerons.
Good, good.
Yep. We want to check flaps. Part of it.
Oh, no. Flaps aren't part of it. We've technically already checked those.
Annunciator lights.
Alright, so annunciator lights, we don't have anything up here that's blinking at us. Sometimes on a plane that has a fancy engine monitoring suite, if you set at idle power like this, it would blink like low oil pressure or something like that. But again, we don't have any annunciator lights that we need to worry about.
Instruments.
Alright, so this is another check. One, to make sure that we have our altimeter and our heading indicator set properly. And the other one is just a quick glance over the instruments here.
And
Make sure
for
everything
90
looks good
Tango,
there.
left base 28 touch
So I
go.
do
Hands
notice
first.
that our heading indicator and we're a little off from each other.
Uh-huh. Yep, so they've already drifted a little bit, right?
Yep.
So this one obviously is magnetic, no battery or anything connected there, so it's always going to point to magnetic north. But this guy, on the other hand, is operated off of a vacuum pump.
Uh-huh.
So due to the gyroscopic precession, over time it likes to creep a little bit. And that's one of the principles of gyroscopes that we'll talk about.
All right.
So
do
every
we need to readjust this to this one?
Yep, we sure do. So every so often, we're going to have to reset that to make sure that it's still accurate.
All right, there.
All right.
Okay, and we just did instruments, mixture, best power.
All right, so in most aircraft, or not most aircraft, but some aircraft, best power is going to be full rich. That's the general rule. But in our aircraft, we know that we need to keep the mixture lean a little bit, pretty much throughout everything we do. Otherwise, we're going to foul up our spark plugs.
Okay.
So we're going to leave the mixture where it is.
Where it is, okay. Primer in and lock.
All right, so we didn't use the primer. It should still be in and locked over there. It looks like it is.
So we want to go to 2,000 RPMs now.
All right, so I'm going to verify that nobody is behind us. Normally, we would not do a run-up sitting right here, but gotta be adaptable. So, all right, whenever we throttle up to 2,000 RPM, we're going to keep our hand on the brakes because this aircraft is notorious for the brakes not holding us. So, all right, so whenever you're ready, I'll throttle up to 2,000 RPM there.
All right.
All right, so now we're going to check our magnetos. So I want you to flip the key down once. Check one, get a little bit of a drop there. Back to both. Let it stabilize for a second. Now flip it down twice. We'll isolate the other one. Got the same drop. Back to both. All right, now we'll turn carpet on. So pull that carpet all the way out. Get a little bit of drop there. Back to off. All right, last we'll check our instruments. So we have good suction over here. Oil temperature looks good. Fuel pressure looks good. Oil pressure looks good. And then we have a positive charge on our alternator. All right, so you can go ahead and pull the power back to idle. Pull it all the way back to idle. We'll make sure the engine keeps running even at idle power. All right. And lastly, we'll bump it back to about 1,000.
No, I don't think my brakes are set here.
No. I think they are. The brake lever, it doesn't take a very, very big bite in this aircraft.
So we just did fuel check, we did the amps, oil pressure, temperature,
Loud and clear.
flows,
Thank you.
friction lock.
All right, so we got all the run-up done.
And for 90 Tango, left downwind
Flap
28.
0 to 25 degrees.
All right, so we're going to leave the flaps up, 0 degrees for just a normal takeoff, which is what we're going to do.
Mixture, best power.
All right, we're going to leave the mixture set where it is.
Fuel pump on.
All right, let's get the fuel pump on. Red switch, right there.
Carb heat off.
All right, verify that's off.
We're waiting for runway
Pitot heat
2.
as required.
We're waiting for our IFR clearance. You can go ahead and...
We are squat to 1200.
Roger that. We're still running through our run-up here. Thank you.
Okay.
Heading bug. You guys don't have a heading bug.
No, so we do not have a heading bug, but I use that as an opportunity just to verify one more time that that's set where we want it.
Doors and windows.
All right, I'll go ahead and pull my door too.
Probes. All lights
All
are
right,
on.
all lights are on. Very good.
Landing lights are on. Time note.
Okay.
244 UTC.
Okay.
244. Brake release.
Alright, so you can go ahead and release the brakes and pull us on up to the hold short line. Right now we got traffic on downwind for 28. Alright, so while we're pulling up to the hold short line, let's talk about an abort plan. So an abort plan would sound something like if we
Hampton
have...
Roads, 9 Sierra Tango, left base 28, full stop, Hampton Roads.
Alright, power back. And brakes. So if we have an engine failure while we're still on the runway, then we're going to stop on the remaining runway. If we have an engine failure at a low altitude, anything below 700 feet, we're going to secure the aircraft and try and glide straight ahead. There's a field off to our left that you'll see. If we have an engine failure but we're above 1,000 feet, then we're going to try and make it back to the field. Or, sorry, above 700 feet, we're going to try and do
Hampton
that.
Roads, 9 Sierra Tango,
Full 180 degree turn,
full stop, Hampton Roads.
and we'll be landing back on this runway just in the opposite direction. So that's
somebody
sort of,
making a call to come in here?
Yep, right there.
I see him now.
Yep, so that's sort of what your report plan would sound like if you were briefing it. Alright, so anytime we're sitting around like this, right now we pretty much got the power to idle.
Yep.
You feel how kind of rough the engine is running.
Yeah.
So anytime we're just sitting like this, let's just give it a little bump back to about 1,000. There you go.
Okay.
Just runs a lot smoother there. Alright, so one other thing that we need to look at right here, it looks like our attitude indicator has drifted a little bit. So I suspect why that happens is whenever we first started the engine up, it wasn't fully stabilized. This also runs off of a vacuum pump, gyro-driven. So whenever we're at low RPMs during startup, we don't have much suction, so there's not much vacuum in there. So sometimes it doesn't stabilize. But whenever we do our run-up, we get to 2,000 RPM, developing plenty of suction. Then sometimes it moves a little bit. So just something to be aware of there. All right. Are you ready to go?
I am ready to go.
Okay. So we're looking out the right window over here, making sure I don't see anybody on
No
final,
traffic.
nobody on base. Doesn't look like anybody's making the base turn off of downwind. So once we've verified that everything is clear, we'll give pretty much all of our systems one last look.
Traffic 9 Sierra Tango, clear the active at Bravo.
Everything looks set where we want it. Mags are on both. All right. The last thing, we'll make a radio call and then we'll be out of here.
Hampton Roads traffic 4239 Juliet. Ready for takeoff on runway 28.
You can just say taking off runway 28.
Okay. Hampton Roads traffic 4293 Juliet, taking off runway 28.
All right. Very good. Let's do it. So go ahead and release the brakes. Give us a little bit of power. We'll basically just follow the yellow line right on out there to the center line. Alright, once we're out here on the center line, you can smoothly add in full power. A little bit of right rudder, it'll help us out. Alright, now we'll verify we have good RPMs, all of our instruments look good. And we'll transition our eyes over here to airspeed indicator. Once we hit about 60, we'll add a little bit of back pressure.
We want to pitch for what?
So about 80 is a good climb out. Technically VY best rate is about 86. So somewhere between 80 and 90.
Seems like we're going a little bit faster than that.
Yep. So if our airspeed is a little too high, what we can do is we can actually coax a little bit more performance out of the plane. Just pitch up a little bit more.
Pitch up more?
Yep, a little bit.
Okay.
So now our airspeed is going to decrease a little bit, but our climb rate is going to improve.
It's going to increase, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, now we can see all those towers that our NOTAMs were warning us about.
Yep.
So we'll stay well clear of those.
A little bumpy right there.
Just a little bit. Alright, so don't pitch up too much. I want you to hold a pitch attitude, so pick an attitude and hold it.
Okay.
Just hold the nose there. Alright, once we get to 1,000 feet, we'll start working our way through our climb checklist.
After roads traffic, Cherokee 3659 around me, departing runway 28 after this.
Where are we climbing to?
We'll climb to 2,500. Alright, so climb checklist, verify that our airspeed is between 86 and 100 miles an hour, so we're in that range. Power is set where we want it, should be full rich. Mixture is still set where we want it. At this point, we can go ahead and get our fuel pump off. Alright. We'll have another look at all of our instruments. Make sure everything is indicating normal over here. Still don't need to make any adjustments over there. Oh. Alright. We can leave all of our lights on so we don't have to turn any lights off. And then we don't need to open a flight plan. We're not going to be worried about a flight plan today. Alright, now we are clear of those towers, so let's head to the northwest a little bit. So let's turn to the right a little bit. Heading 330 should work for now. So just a little bit of a right turn here.
After roads traffic, Cherokee 59 around me, departing 70 to the west. After roads.
How do you know which direction we're going? Is it just going to a practice field or?
Yeah, so once we cross this little river down here, all of this land over here is pretty much what we consider our practice area. So over there on the right, we have the James River. We normally stay on this side of the James River. Just over here, we have the, whatever it is, Merriam Monitor Memorial Bridge, Bridge Tunnel.
Monitor Merrimack.
Yeah, yeah. So that is actually the very edge of Norfolk's airspace, the big international airport. So we typically stay on this side of that bridge as well. So that is Class Charlie. So
yep,
technically we can go in there. We just have to be talking to them to do it.
Right.
All right, so it looks like we have reached our cruising altitude. So let's let that nose come down just a little bit. All right, and now we can take a little bit of power out. So somewhere between 23, 2400 is pretty good RPM setting for cruise. There's also 3 Class Delta airports on the other side of the James River, so we typically stay on this side. All right, now that we are at cruising altitude, one more checklist to do, cruise checklist. So power, mixture, instruments, fuel, proper tank. So power set where we want it, mixture still set where we want it, instruments all look good still. Fuel, proper tank, we're still burning on the right tank has more fuel, so good there.
Alright.
Alright, so done with checklist for a little while. Now let's do some flying.
Yep.
Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is just practice a little bit of straight and level flight as we sort of get deeper into our practice area. So I want you to pick an altitude. You can stay here at 27 is fine.
Okay.
And I want you to just try your best to hold that altitude on a heading of 330. We'll just fly straight and level like this for a little bit.
Very hazy down here in the horizon.
It is. And in my experience, that is a pretty common theme for this area. Very rarely do we have days where it's not like this. Yesterday it was a little bit better than this, but it was still pretty hazy.
Still having to put a little bit of forward pressure. That feels a lot better. Okay.
Awesome, looking good. So obviously you've already had a few flight lessons. Clearly somebody has talked to you and shown you how the trim control works, which is awesome. Trim is going to be your new best friend.
Yes, yes, it is.
Especially coming back to land when we're going to be at those lower airspeeds, higher drag configurations. You're really going to have to fight the yoke unless you use that trim. So that's awesome.
So we've crossed over the water.
Yep, we've crossed over our little river
We're
back
on to the peninsula side now, right? Or
no.
are we still in Suffolk?
So Suffolk is actually over there to our left. Over here to our right is the James River Bridge.
Okay, yeah, so that side would be
And
Newport
then
News.
I think there's another town out here somewhere, maybe Franklin, something. Oh, Franklin's off of our left again.
So if I were to be doing a,
Smithfield.
well, we done gained up a lot of altitude. I wasn't paying attention. We're almost at 3,000. That's too much. Past my 100-foot minimum.
All right, well, let's practice a descent then. Let's descend back down to 2,500. Let's pull a little bit of power back, maybe like 2,000 or so, and then just let the nose come down a little bit. Here you go.
And we're doing about 500. There we go.
Alright, so once we get back to our altitude, we'll bring the nose back up a little bit, add in a little bit of that power back.
Coming off a heading though, I want to stay on my course.
Yep.
There we go. We're back on course. Up. Power. That's about 2,400.
Yeah, I'd add just a little bit more. It'll make it easier for us to hold altitude.
Alright.
Alright, so as I'm sure you've probably figured out by now, one of the first things that we really learn in flight training is just how to fly just by looking outside.
Yeah.
So we can tell when we're pitched up too much, when we're pitched down too much. So one of the things you sort of develop is how much distance there should be between the horizon and the nose of the aircraft for straight and level flight. So you sort of develop that sight picture over time to where you can pretty much just at a glance tell if you're straight and level or not. Same thing with turns, you know, you can sort of look outside, pick a point out there on the horizon, tell whether or not you're turning. Unfortunately, we don't have any mountains around here. Not any great prominent landmarks out there on the horizon to choose from. Just kind of a cloudy haze up there, but we do the best we can.
We're holding pretty straight on our course 330 for the most part. The only thing that I see is we're dropping a little bit. We're hovering in between 2,500 and 2,400.
Yep. Yep, just a little bit. I would say your altitude control is really, really good. Some students have a tendency, what they'll do is trying to target a specific altitude, they'll descend too much, and then they'll descend through it, and then they'll climb trying to get back to it, and then they'll climb through it, and then they'll just keep that oscillation going pretty much the whole time, just chasing that altitude.
Small movements.
So small corrections, Always anticipate the lead off for the altitude, bringing the nose down or leveling off, whatever.
And just trying to get a sight picture out here.
Yeah.
As to what's...
And it's so much easier, not to mention faster, just to look outside.
Yeah.
Yep. And you know, the other reason why we train that way is because, you know, we want to be spending 90% of our time looking outside anyway, scanning for traffic, and then only 10% of the time looking inside at the instruments, engine instruments, what have you. Alright, so I think you got straight and level down pretty well, so let's try some turns. So, I want you to turn, let's go to the left first, and let's turn left 240.
Turn left 240?
Yeah.
Turning left 3 down.
Alright, very nice. Alright, so has anyone talked to you a little bit about whenever you're turning, you need to add a little bit of back pressure?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't do a lot.
Right.
Just a little bit. But
Yes.
I didn't lose too much.
No, you did great. So whenever we're flying straight and level like this, all of our lift is pretty much going straight up, right?
Yeah.
But whenever we start banking any, we're creating a little bit of horizontal lift as well.
Yes.
Which means we're losing a little bit of vertical, and that's why we have to compensate with that back pressure. And the more we bank, the worse that problem gets. So when we start doing steep turns at 45 degrees of bank, you really got to add some back pressure, right? Maybe even a little trim.
And we'll feel those G's too.
Yep.
I've done those.
Yep.
They put you in your seat.
They sure do. Alright, let's go ahead and do another left turn. Let's go back to 120 this time.
120?
120.
Alright, 120. I don't know, am I coming out too soon or too late?
No, looks like you rolled out right on it.
Yeah, I felt like I had a rush to roll out to it though, to make sure I hit it. I dropped a little bit on a rollout.
Right. Yeah, so whenever you're rolling out of the turn, the tendency is the nose actually wants to rise up on you. So make sure that you're actually
pushing the nose
down a little bit. And we'll definitely see that when we do steep turns. That'll be really prominent. The other thing is whenever we're turning, we want to use a little bit of rudder pressure as well. Keep us nice and coordinated to help us roll in and roll out of our turns.
So we're on the roll out. I rolled in first and then put rudder. On the roll out, do I let up on the rudder and then roll out?
So we always want to be adding rudder as we roll in. But interestingly enough, once we're established in the turn, we don't need any rudder pressure at all.
Okay.
The rudder should be neutralized. So one of the functions of the rudder is actually to counteract adverse yaw. So whenever we turn, our ailerons deflect, right, which creates a little bit of drag. And that's one of the purposes of the rudder is to actually counteract that drag, which is called adverse yaw. But whenever we are established in the turn, our ailerons are neutral once we're actually established in the turn, which means our rudder should be neutral, right? All right, I'm going to take controls for a second. I want to show you that to you. So I got controls. All right, so let's just roll into a simple 30-degree turn here. All right, so once we're in the turn, I mean, I still have my hand on the yoke, but I'm really not applying any forces left or right. I'm just kind of holding it where it is, right? Yep. Which means, look, my feet are off of the rudders, and we're perfectly center, right? So you really don't need it, because we don't have any ailerons, so no adverse yaw. All right, now when we roll out, I'll stop on that right rudder just a little bit.
Okay.
All right? So no adverse, y'all. No need for the rudder once we're actually established. So rolling in and rolling out, we'll use the rudder, but once you're actually established in the bank, you don't need it.
You don't need it. Okay.
All right, I'll give it back to you. So whenever you're ready, you got controls.
My controls?
Your controls. All right, now you said you have already practiced a little bit with steep turns, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's something else that we could cross off our bucket list for today. So, do you know what we need to do before any maneuver?
Clearing turns?
Clearing turns, absolutely right. You will fail your check ride every single time if you forget your clearing turns. So let's do a couple clearing turns.
Okay, so we're going to clear to the right.
Okay.
Ambrose traffic,
Okay.
helicopter 36 Victor
Clear
Bravo.
there.
Taking off
Alright.
runway 28, be right traffic 28.
And we're going to clear to the left.
Okay.
I don't see any traffic there. Okay.
Perfect. All right. Now let's turn to the left just a little bit more. Let's go 300. That way we don't have to worry about getting any closer to this delta up here.
All right.
All right, so we've cleared the area. Next we'll just do sort of what I like to call the pre-maneuvers checklist. We'll just look over the aircraft, make sure everything's set where we want it. So mixture's set where we want it. Power looks good. We don't need the carb heat for this, obviously. Mags should be on both. They don't need the fuel pump for this. And then master's not turned off for any reason. So nothing looks unusual. So area's clear, pre-maneuver checklist, all good. So now let's actually set up and do some steep turns. All right, so unfortunately we don't have any very prominent landmarks to use, but if you can find something out there on the horizon, orient your nose with. There's a little bit of a cloud out there. I don't know if you can see that. We can use that. Typically, it's not the best idea to use clouds as reference points because they move.
Because they're moving, yeah.
But when you got nothing else, sometimes you got to make do.
I can see that cloud right there. It doesn't look like it's moving too straight ahead.
Yeah, we should be fine with that one.
36 Victor Bravo.
And then we're at
right
3-1 something.
Okay.
All right.
All right, so that'll be our exit heading.
Yep.
So steep turns, 45 degrees, so somewhere between 30 and 60, about halfway, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be 45 degrees of bank. We'll use rudder to roll in and out. Once we get established in the turn, rolling through 30 degrees, we'll add just a touch of power. Trim if you need it, and then we'll roll out on the same heading. We'll use rudder to roll out.
Okay. Any particular direction?
It's up to you. Either way you want to go.
All right. Well,
So whenever you're ready.
To the left.
All right.
All right.
So let's get that bank in there. All right. Careful of that nose drop. Careful of that bank angle. There we go. So a little bit more back pressure there.
Back pressure, more back pressure.
Yeah. All right. Don't let the bank get too steep either.
Okay.
All right. Shallow on the bank.
Helicopter 36 Victor Bravo is just going to break off the right down for 28 to the north, and then we'll loop back around, eventually rejoin down.
Okay. Coming back on your cloud, so we'll roll out, take a little bit of that power out. Don't let the nose come up on you.
All right. Did I come out too early?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
We'll clean that up. All right. Let's go ahead and do another one while we're set up for it, and we'll do this one to the right.
All right.
So whenever you're ready, we'll do another one to the right.
That'd be more.
You're looking good. Just a little bit of back pressure, a little bit shallower on the bank. There's your cloud.
I lost a lot of altitude on that.
Yep, a little bit.
Got to climb back up.
All right, so I'm going to take controls for a second. So I got
Your
controls, my controls. All right, I'm going to turn this back towards the airport. All right, so one of the things that I noticed there, and one of the things that a lot of people do, is whenever they're making the inside turn, they tend to be they like bank a lot more. And what I mean by inside turn is, say you're sitting on the left side of the aircraft and you were using your left hand, right?
Yes.
So you were kind of like this. And what happens when you do that, as I've noticed this in my flight training as well, is you inadvertently want to pull back a little bit as well. So be mindful of that. I notice your right turn is a little bit different because you're going the opposite way.
Yeah.
But I've sort of been victim to that. Whenever you're turning this way, you're sort of pulling back without even realizing it. So just be mindful of that. The other thing is, whenever we're doing steep turns, we really can do it pretty much just looking straight outside. So what we want to do is we want to just pick a point either on the nose or on the windscreen, so it could be like a bug spot out there. And we just want to drag that straight across the horizon best we can. Okay?
Okay.
So, for example, we're at 2400. We'll do one to the left here, so add a little bit of rudder pressure, roll in. And now I'm just going to pick a spot right there on the nose, and I'm just going to drag it straight across.
Gotcha. What I was doing when I was looking down and that way, I'm looking at the ground because it seems like the wing pivots around a spot on the ground.
Uh-huh.
So that's what I was doing, a lot of looking down, pivoting.
Gotcha.
But we want to look out here.
We want to look outside, drag that nose right across the horizon.
Gotcha.
All right, so another little trick that we can use, I'll do another one to the right here at 2500, is let's see what happens here.
And the road's traffic 4835 Golf.
All right, let's say I inadvertently pull up too much, we start climbing. So what we can do to actually lose altitude is actually increase our angle of bank. So if we increase our angle of bank a little bit, see that altitude coming back down?
Yep.
All right, and then all I'm going to do to catch it is I'm going to shallow back out a little bit. So if we want to lose altitude, we can increase our angle of bank. If we need to gain a little bit, then we can shallow the bank a little bit.
Awesome.
So whenever we're doing this on your check ride, you have certain standards that you have to stay within, right?
Yeah.
But you have a little bit of wiggle room on the bank angle if you need it. So that's one of the things you can do to sort of help yourself gain and lose altitude. And that's something that we'll work on. All right?
Now, notice when you were coming out of it, you didn't really give it a lot of force to come out.
No, so one of the reasons why that is I didn't really pick a starting heading. I was more focused on the maneuver than the actual heading. But typically when you roll out, it all sort of happens simultaneously. A little bit of rudder, roll out, push forward, and take power out all at the same time. And hopefully you're going to be leveling out at the same altitude you started at, ideally. All right, so I'm going to hand the aircraft back over to you.
All right.
Whenever you're ready. So you got controls. All right, what do you say we head back and work on a couple landings? I can definitely tell you got a pretty strong grasp of the basic straight and level, steep turns, medium bank turns, things like that. So I'm not too worried about that with you.
All right, so which heading do we want to go?
All right, so heading back from our practice area, the airport is going to be right there. So it's pretty easy to find. We know that we need to cross the river, right? And then that should get us pretty close.
So what heading is the airport?
I would say approximately 150. So being hazy, it's a little hard to tell what's the actual airport. So just past the river, you have sort of that cluster of industrial buildings. That's actually a warehouse. And then just beyond that, there's a big clearing that sort of runs this way. And that's the actual airport.
Okay.
Being as hazy as it is, we can't see those towers as well. I can see one right here. But on a normal day, when it's nice and clear, we can see all those towers. And we know that if we fly pretty much in between those towers, that's going to take you right back to the airport.
So I see some power lines right here.
All right, what else do you see?
See the bridge.
What else
water.
do you see? Right down there. I'll give you a hint, it's moving.
Oh, yes, I see a plane.
All right.
Coming in for a
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's turn away from that a little bit. He's well below us, but
Yeah,
I don't know what he's doing, so we'll give him a little room.
You don't see him up here either.
Nope. So we don't have ADS-B in linked to our GPS, so we're not going to see him. That's why we always looking outside, see and avoid, see and avoid.
Looks like he was coming in for a landing.
Possibly, yep.
Where? Is there another airport over here?
So he might be setting up to do straight in for 10. He could also be heading over to Suffolk, which is over there, so. But it looks like he's turning back this way now.
Got driver class there. 3 mile initial, left overhead, 3. Traffic 45 Golf is, 3 to the south, I'm hearing left 45 downwind for 28, enter.
Alright, so what we're going to do from this heading is we're going to overfly the field and then enter on a 45. So, let's go ahead and descend down to 2,000 feet. Typically when we come out here to our practice area, we'll come out at 2,500. When we come back, we'll come in at 2,000. Sure that guy's not going to do anything crazy.
You said 2,500?
2,000.
2,000.
Yep. All right, now while we're working through our descent here, we'll work through our checklist. So, mixture, give it a check. Carb as required. Fuel, proper tank, so still looks okay. Altimeter, we will check that, make sure that's still set. And then our instruments as well. So, we'll listen to the weather here. And we'll see if our altimeter setting has changed any.
Airport. Automated weather observation. 1516 Zulu. Wind 230 at 08. Visibility 10. Sky condition clear. Temperature 23 Celsius. Dew point 18 Celsius. Altimeter 298.
Alright, so remember when we're descending, we need to take out some power.
Altitude 1,100.
We don't want to be descending at full power. Alright, so I think it was 2988.
2988.
Okay. So we'll see if that needs any adjustment.
So that's 29er.
Alright, don't let the nose come down too much.
Okay. 99, 29.
Entrance traffic 1493 Juliet. We're 4 miles to the northwest. We're going to overfly at 2,000 and teardrop onto the 45 for 28 Hamburgers. All right.
Okay, I can see the airport.
Hamburg traffic, 835 Golf is turning base runway 28, Hamburg traffic.
All right, you see these groups of towers over here? One there and then one here. And then you see the group over there?
Yes.
So what we're going to do when we come back is we're going to fly in between these groups. And once we're clear of this group of towers, we're sort of going to turn towards the field a little bit. Because whenever we overfly the field, we want to fly right over the middle of the field. So we pretty much want to split the runway right down the middle. Now, have you got to do a landing where you overflew the field yet?
No.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so we'll brief that on the ground.
We've always came from a 45.
Perfect, gotcha. All right, we'll keep us here closer to 2,000. Yeah, so we'll debrief all of that on the ground as well as the radio call I made for us.
835 Golf, turning final runway 28, Hamburg traffic.
So one more checklist we got to worry about. Pre-landing, so brakes, pedal tests, that's not applicable to us. We don't have pedal brakes. Make sure that the landing light is on. Make sure we got our seatbelts on. Mixture is set where we want it. Carb as required. We'll get the fuel pump on. So go ahead and flip the fuel pump on. There you go. So fuel pump's always on for takeoffs and landings. Alright, now we're going to turn and we're going to fly right over the middle of the field here. I see somebody landing on 28.
I see him.
Awesome.
So why are we overflying the field? Why are we flying over it?
Just because of the direction we came back from, it makes sense for us to overfly the field.
So we can make, come and turn around?
Yes.
To make our, okay.
Yeah, instead of having to make a big old loop around the airport,
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll debrief all of that. Those are good questions. All right.
Gotcha. So we're going to overfly the field to a certain point. Then we're going to see the, well, I guess we're going to come in at a 45 angle.
Yep, we're still going to do that. All right, so over the field.
Yep.
After road traffic 1493 Juliet, over the field at 2000. We're going to enter on the 45 for 28 amperes. So we're still going to enter on that 45, so we'll be entering like this. So we're going to loop around.
Cleared active.
So once we're over the field, we can take out a little bit of power and start a descent.
Enter traffic 835 Golf, taxiing from the active to the west ramp.
Alright, so remember our pattern altitude is 1,000 feet, right?
1,000 feet, yep.
So we got about 1,000 feet or so to lose. Alright, I see an aircraft behind us. About our 4 o'clock. Looks like he's at least 1,000 above us, not sure what he's doing.
I see him.
Alright, but I don't see anybody out here.
Nope.
Alright, so remember runway 28 is left traffic. So when we finish this turn, we should be set up on a left downwind for 28. Alright. So I'm going to fly upwind a little bit, give us some more room here. That way we can actually establish on a 45. Alright, there's our 1,000-foot pattern, so we'll add some power back in to stay here. Alright, now we'll work our way towards the airport. A little bit bumpier here, closer to the ground.
Yep.
But nothing out of the ordinary. Alright, once we get on the 45, we can make another radio call that we're just established on the 45. Enter traffic 1493 Juliet, established on the 45 for the downwind, runway 28 amperes. Alright, so we have a row of power lines down here.
I see them.
And what we want to do is we want to turn just on the outside of those, and that's going to put us at a good spacing from the runway.
74 Fox, 6 miles to the northwest. We'll enter the downwind runway 28.
So, let's say if we didn't have these power lines or we were at another airport, another reference point we can use is the runway should be pretty much right off the end of our wing out there. That's what we want to see.
I see it.
And it looks like that's pretty much what we're getting. So, this is great spacing. It's approximately 3/4 of a mile away, but I don't have a ruler, so a little difficult to measure that.
So when we're landing on runway 28, that's when we're coming down onto runway 28.
Yep.
Not coming from runway 2 to
Right.
28.
Right.
Same thing with takeoff.
Yep. Alright, so first step to landing, we'll pull a little bit of power in, we'll get some flaps down, and we'll start slowing down. So I'm going to slow down to about 80. Right now I'm fighting a lot of control pressures, so I'm just going to trim those away. This should be able to be nice and light on the yoke. Alright. Always looking for traffic, make sure nobody's coming in on final. I don't want to cut anybody off. Once the end of the runway gets about 45 degrees behind us, we'll turn our base. Enter traffic 4293 Juliet, base runway 28 amperes. Once we're on base, we'll add our next notch of flaps, so flaps 25. I'll verify once again that our final is clear. Alright, now we look just a little high, so I'm going to take out just a touch of power.
We want to be about 900, 800 around here.
So I'm not so much concerned with the altitude. I'm more so just looking outside and gauging it that way.
Okay.
Alright. Last turn, we'll turn final here. Get in those last notch of flaps. All right, on final, we're targeting approximately 65 miles an hour. And just a little bit of trim to help us with that. Take that pressure away. Hampton Roads traffic, 4293 Juliet, final runway 28 Hampton Roads.
What's your target point on the runway?
Okay, so you see the big fat white rectangles down there, the 1,000 footers?
Yep.
So that's going to be my intended touchdown point. My aiming point is going to be about 1 to 1.5 stripes ahead of that. So that's where I'm actually aiming for. So that's what my eyes are locked on right now. That's the point that I'm going to bring us down to, and the point we're going to round out or transition from this descent to straight and level just above the runway. Okay? Another thing is, as we get close to the runway, I'm also going to transition my eyes from down here to the end of the runway. That's going to help me gauge our distance from the runway so we don't smack into it. So we'll just keep coming down nice and gentle right down to our aiming point. Start working that power back to idle. Once we get over our aiming point, we'll transition to straight and level just above the runway. And then we'll hold it off till it touches down. So we'll add a little bit of extra back pressure there at the very end. That way our main wheels touch down before our nose wheel. Okay?
To that windsock, we should have been on the other runway.
The shorter one?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yep, and we will use the shorter one. Probably not until a little bit later on in your training. But like I said, for the most part, 95% of the people are going to use the big runway regardless of what the windsock is telling them. People just do not like that shorter runway. Guess it scares them. All right, so let's move on to our after landing checklist. Let's get all that taken care of.
All right. After landing, flaps up.
All right, let's get those up.
Up. Power heat off. We never use. Fuel pump off.
Okay.
Strobe lights off.
All right, we don't have strokes.
Landing lights off.
Okay. You can turn it off. You can also leave it on. I'm fine with either.
Taxi lights as required. Pitot heat off.
Don't have.
Mixture as required. We want to go back to.
We'll leave it where it is. Yep, still leaned a little.
And spark.
Okay, so trim set for takeoff. So we got to reset that trim.
Oh.
So I added quite a bit in there, right? So got to make sure we reset that.
There we go.
Now that's not as important right now since we're about to go shut down our engine. But if we were going to taxi back and then take off again, and we forgot to reset it down there, then we'd be fighting a lot of control pressures when we tried to take off. And
gotcha.
That's not a good thing.
Okay.
All right.
That's it for after takeoff.
Perfect.
Now we're going to securing.
So we'll wait on that till we get over there. So as soon as we get clear of the runway, we'll normally make a call, just say that we're clear of runway 28. So right now we can make a taxi call, just say we're taxiing from Charlie to the west ramp.
Hampton Roads traffic 4293 Juliet. Clear runway 28, taxiing from Charlie to west ramp.
Very good. All right. And release the brakes. Just a little bit of power. All right, and we'll be making a left here. All right, looks like they're just pushed back their aircraft, so they should be out of our way, so we can go in that way. All right, so go ahead and take a little bit of power out. A little bit of power out. There we go. We sort of just want to coast right through these turns. There you go. So we'll make a right here, and then we'll pretty much make a left, and then just drive straight down the alley there. All right, we'll slow it down a little bit now that we're on the ramp. There you go.
Flight school.
Yes. All right, so now be on the other side of 59 over here. We'll get just a little bit closer. All right, go ahead. I already got your hand on the brake. Perfect. And now we'll just kick in that right rudder. We'll need to add a little bit of power to get us through the turn. So don't brake too soon, but also don't brake too late. So. Right rudder. Perfect. All right, now we'll set the brakes and we'll move on to securing.
All right, securing ELT.
Verify silent. Okay, so if the ELT had have accidentally tripped, we would hear it dinging in our headsets. So that's how you know that it's silent. We don't hear it.
Avionics off.
All right, so avionics 1 and 2. Turn that all the way to the left. There you go. And it'll give you a warning message, but that's perfectly normal.
All right. Mixture full lean.
Okay, so we'll pull this guy all the way out.
Cut it off.
Yep. We're taking fuel away from the engine now. Should die on us. Perfect.
Yep.
All right. Now it's not on the checklist, but as soon as the engine dies, we need to release the brakes so that whenever we push the aircraft back, we're not fighting the brakes, because that's a battle we won't win.
Okay. Master off. Well, mags off.
Mags off first, so key all the way to the left. All right, now go ahead and take